I was traveling around the world a little bit. I was in Japan, I was in India, I was in Europe multiple times. I had a wonderful boss by the name of Ash Kushel that I reported into, but at the time we were going to these very tiny businesses. I thought I had some big businesses. I had a $100 million plus agency and a couple other pretty scaled agencies in the US that really required a lot of my attention. It's like, why am I going to India? You know, and looking at $1 million business with, you know, what am I doing in Germany when this business is in such bad shape? How am I supposed to address the issues of this small failing business when all of the really important business is back in the United States? So I had a couple of those moments where I was jet lagged and in some remote place going like, how did I get myself into this? What is he doing to me? But of course, you know, I think there was a long tail and a method to his madness. So I had to do that to have a global job, and I had to understand what the nature of the global agencies was and what the components of them were and the economics to be able to do what I do now.
So let's catch up to then that fateful day when Nick asked you that question. So you had your answer. Then what did you do? So you asked, do you want to be the CEO? She finally said yes. Then what? What happens next? Because you didn't name her CEO that day.
No.
What was your objective? You're getting ready for, what was your timeline?
Well, I felt as though there was about 2 years left in my tenure, and I knew I would need about those 2 years to really to help prepare the organization, both our organization, Publicis Health, and the group, because there's two aspects to this at this point now is, you know, the acceptance or understanding, and I understood this as hard as it is for me to say. Most people know me as just the guy that just does his job. But, you know, I had defined the role of a CEO at Publicis Health because I was, although not the first, within a short period of time, I was really the founder, if you will. I like to joke and say I wasn't George Washington, but I was Thomas Jefferson. I kind of wrote the plan and was a very early CEO. And so I knew the organization had a rhythm and a way that was very much my own. But I also knew it needed a change, and I want to speak to that in a moment about why that is. But I also had to prepare the group, because in these publicly traded entities, there's a responsibility at that level that is to the group and interaction to the group at different committees and at the characters and the toughness that exist of all of you. I don't have to talk to you about that because you've all been a part of that at that level. And so much of those 2 years was about preparing Alex for and the organization itself for this transition.
So one thing that happened that is a concept that we want to kind of bring to you is that there were some organizational changes that happened, and we like to think about every open role as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to affect change. It's an opportunity to redefine roles, responsibilities, and find ways to accelerate development of individuals. So we had some change in our organization that then led to a bigger role for Alex that did not actually exist in the former organizational structure. So that's taking opportunities along the way, capitalizing on those opportunities, continue to stretch and grow and accelerate the development of the person that you are aiming towards that role. Along the way, things happen too that we have to cause some organizational change. So there are a couple of words that we use. One of them is crucible roles. So I know you guys all do talent reviews, and we look at things like we call key roles. That's a thing in talent management, right? What's a key role? It's a role that can't be left open because you risk revenue or other bad stuff in the business. But a crucible role is a role that is broad enough and deep enough with a unique perspective that allows that acceleration of development of the individual. So when those jobs do exist, you have to really think about how you're going to use those jobs. So we also had some roles like that we would call crucible roles. And we had individuals in those roles that were very good at what they did, but they weren't in the trajectory towards the CEO role. And, I hate to say it, but we use the word blocker. It's not a nice word. It doesn't feel good. But what it means is that there's an individual in a key spot in the organization that's kind of blocking the advancement of other high potential people coming up behind them. So just to take just a couple of thoughts on that, not necessarily related to Alex's story, but how we think about that within our business. We have we have a good example, we have a bad example. No names, please. Protect the innocent, but just thoughts around that.
I actually think those are some of the toughest decisions that you have to make, and I understand you're going to talk about some of that stuff even later today if you haven't already. What you begin to realize is that in order to create the opportunities for growth for the organization, you have to be thinking as broadly and as deeply as you possibly can about the people that need to be put into positions to expand and to get greater depth in their learning and development. And there are people that are in those roles that will fully acknowledge to you that they know they're not going anywhere else and they're just doing an okay job or a solid job. I think that what we learned is that in some cases those are going to happen and you let it exist. In others, you have to be much more active in giving those people maybe another role in the organization, helping them understand in a broader sense, because usually they're people that have been around for a long time and they have an essence and a sense of what the future is going to be. And you start to create for them an understanding that they are building their own legacy in some respects, and they start to move over different roles, and those roles then open up, those crucible roles open up and allow others to move in. There's just not enough these days active management and leadership of really engaging with people and helping them truly understand not only who they are and what they want, but what the organization is and what it needs. And when you have those in an honest, mature way, my experience is that 4 times out of 5, not 5 out of 5, but 4 times out of 5, people get it and they understand. And if you create the right environment for that, good things usually happen and those roles open up and the organization starts to come up.
Alex, any other thoughts on that?
There's nothing like a plan. Nick has said, your plan, nothing ends a plan like a punch in the face, or something like that.
The great philosopher Mike Tyson said, everyone goes into the ring with a plan till they get punched in the mouth.
Right. And so I guess what Shannon's getting at is, being able to make those decisions and then act on the decisions. You can see that within the next year or the next 2 years, we're going to do something. And usually my sense is, what you need to do. You need to do it as soon as you possibly can, not sometime in the future.
So you said a plan. So we had a plan for you. That was a nice journey. It was going to be pleasant, and we were going to get you there. And then inevitably, all plans changed, and we had to accelerate your movement into the role. Mm-hmm. So I just want everyone to know that the 2-year plan was actually 6 months or something like that. About a year. And that brought us to then Alex moving into her role a year ago. So now, Alex, you're in your role. Each year we do a talent review with our parent company, and every year, I've been doing this for a few years now with these guys, and we walk in and we present our talent review and everything that's happened in the last year. And every single year I say this line. The good news is we executed our succession plan. The bad news is we fully executed our succession plan, which meant, oh my gosh, now we got to start all over again. It's not starting all over again. The thing is that this is a cyclical thing. It's fluid. It is always going, and the best laid plans change all the time. So you can't do a talent review once a year and then dust it off the next year. It's really about how you kind of live your talent planning all the time and always looking for the opportunities. So I wanted to give Nick and Alex a chance before we, I'm watching the clock, before we take questions, just to give any of your kind of final thoughts. And I'm going to start with you, Alex, now, because now you are in this role for a year. What are you thinking? What keeps you up at night? What are your, now the perspectives that you're building from this seat in the organization around talent?
Yeah. Well, you know, Nick was very sensitive about the acceleration and some of the, you know, ways I hadn't been exposed to the group, and I hadn't had the trials by fire, and I was going to have them in like full Monty mode as CEO, if you will. And he had said to me, you know, we were talking about that, and at one point I said to him, you know, I have something that nobody else in any role like this ever has. If I went to a new company and had taken a job like this, which I would have fully intended to do if I didn't get the promotion, was I had something I wouldn't have if I moved to another business, and I had him. And that didn't, so our relationship didn't end, and his coaching and mentoring didn't end. And it was really important. I think it changed the complexion of pulling me up so quickly when I kind of wasn't technically ready as he and I would have liked me to be, but because he also moved into a bigger job and a very challenging job. But we had such a good relationship that we had built over the years that there was always some support there. So I feel very fortunate to have that. That is a very rare thing, and not everybody has that, I recognize. But in any event, I'm learning a lot of things the hard way again. And but I think what's most exciting, and you know you're growing when you're panicked. And I mean that in the nicest way, so I hope that doesn't get to press. Publicis CEO, help me with panic. Nobody tweet that, please. But you know, and I tell my team that all the time, you know. People think, generally people can do more than they think they can do. And there's a period of time when they think they're drowning, and they just have to get their sea legs. They just have to get their balance, and it takes a while. And when you move people quickly, and I think as a industry, we have to make a commitment to moving people more quickly. You know, all those best laid plans things are kind of good to have as guiding principles, but we have to act, and we have to also act to get some, younger people and some different people in diversity, like really into our populations. And we're going to have to make risky decisions that are faster than the ones we would otherwise like to make. So I think I'm living through my own version of that.
So Alex, you said in the beginning, this session is not, we weren't here to focus on gender, but I am going to call out, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, Nick, I'm sorry. Nick has been recognized externally, even to our own industry, for really championing the advancement of women in leadership. And I'd just like, your final thoughts on that. I'm sorry I didn't warn you I was going to ask you that, but I can't sit next to you and not talk about that.
Look, I think the first thing I'd say to you is I'm not out righting a wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm not a crusader. I'm just not that guy. And I can't even tell you that I have daughters, because I have 3 sons. Okay, so I'm not doing it for any other reason except it's just damn right thing to do. And it's just good business. And I didn't say it to get your applause either. It's just the right thing to do. People manifest their ambition in many different ways. If there's any genius that I have, it's that I love human behavior, I study it, and I watch people. Alex von Plato had the 3 things that I believe you need to be a leader today. She leads with her head, her heart, and her hands. All 3. And because of that, it didn't matter who she was, male or female. She's just a good leader. And frankly, that's what we need to do a whole lot more of around here. And I believe getting to people young is what we need to be doing. So I'm glad you're doing sessions like this.
This has been terrific. We're going to open this up to some questions, but first and foremost, I want to thank Shannon, Alexandra, and Nick, because it's always helpful to learn through reflection and deconstruction of processes. And I know we've all learned something thoughtful about the approach to succession planning. And the other thing I also take note of is being able to take risk. Once you realize that the individuals have the ingredients that you just talked about, and whatever those ingredients are within our respective organizations in terms of the type of talent that we're looking to develop and evolve, it's important to take the risk, because if you don't, someone else is going to snatch them and you're going to end up having to do it anyway. So if you recognize the talent, we need to be in a position as HR leaders to bring our leadership along and make them be prepared to take the risk, as opposed to hold off for another 12 to 18 months, because those individuals will walk out. So thank you on that note. Let's open it up to some questions.
That's a really good point.
So the first question is, Alex, how did the leadership team embrace you as you shifted from peer to boss?
You know, I felt really good about the support that I got from the team. I had sort of a mid-level. I was a group president of over half the portfolio, and then I was elevated to a new role that was created, that Shannon, to group president over the whole portfolio, including the global business. And so that half step really helped me get, you know, a relationship with the team. And I also had to, but I think I knew the people that I had to work harder on. And I really focused on three or four people that I knew I had to win over, and I had to prove that I was on their side, that I wasn't just a peer who got the job they didn't get, but somebody who was now going to champion their careers. And I think whenever you're promoting from within, you have to really confront that that's a dynamic, and you have to design, you know, your approach to the team with that in mind.
So let me just follow that up quickly. So Nick, in watching her make that transition, how did you help along in that process? Because you're also aware of those individuals, leaders that are observing her as a peer and now assessing into that next level. What was your role in terms of helping them to understand the process and what was happening?
Well, the concept I'll talk about is you're always looking for balance in this point. The balance of maybe all of us do, I'm not sure the analogy is right, as a parent or whatever, is that balance as someone grows up or grows into something, you want to be there to help them, but you don't want to be there to hold them too much and then be the person that because automatically there's people on the team that test it by going around her and coming directly to me. You know what she said today? You know, that kind of stuff, and you just smile and go, uh-huh. Go talk to her and don't engage. Where in other moments, as Alex said, when she was having moments or whatever, we do coaching stuff, I'd be there to be much more engaged, or I'd say, okay, I'm gonna do this kind of behind the scenes, and you do that, and then let's see what happens. So you're just making those judgments along the way about how to lean in and then when not to, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, but usually it's good.
I'd like to thank our three panelists.